All right, I think we can start our show. So, good evening to everyone, the listeners joining us tonight. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Farm Spaces with Food from Zanzi. So, tonight we're going to be speaking on saffron farming. We have our guests who are here, and I really wanted them to do their introductions and tell us more about themselves and what they do. And but before I do that, I really just want to get through the house rules. And tonight we're going to be trying something different. So, what we usually do is that we have our session, we talk about a topic, and after that, I open up the floor for you as the listeners to become speakers. So, currently the floor is open. So, if you guys want to engage, or if there's something that you'd like to raise, please request to become a speaker so that we can have a more interactive conversation, because we all here to learn, we're all here to be exposed to new opportunities, and our experts are just going to do just that. So, without any further ado, I'm going to start the show. So, Mr. Eric Brown, are you with
Hello.
us?
Yes.
Perfect. Mr. Eric Brown, please introduce yourself and just tell us more about what you do.
My name is Eric Brown. I'm farming. I'm born in River. Um, since '82, I was born, and then I went to school in River. Then I went to agriculture high school in Paarl. 2000, I finished, and then I went to agriculture college Elsenburg. I finished my studies there, and then after that, I went to the UK for about 10 years. Yeah, and always been in the farming industry, always involved in the farming. And then 2008, I bought my first property, my first piece of land, and then I start farming. So yeah, I'm just in the farming industry.
Thank you so much, Eric Brown, for that wonderful introduction. And with us, we have Savyasachi Das. Savyasachi, could you kindly unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Asavya Sachidas, and this is my name. I'm actually a monk. My government name is Busison Shabatsi. I am a traveling teacher. I'm also heading up an initiative called Wake Up South Africa. My contact with farming, you could say I'm raised in the farm where my parents lived, grew up in Swaziland, and I'm connected to this saffron interest because of being a monk, and also being exposed to the spice in the cuisine that I I partake in, especially with Eastern cuisine. So, based in Johannesburg, I studied in Pretoria University, and I've been a monk now for maybe like 19 years. Yeah. So I'm happy to be with you all this evening.
Thank you so much, Savyasachi, for that. And now I'm just going to get straight to it. Mr. Eric Brown, as a farmer yourself, tell us more about saffron. How did it get introduced here into South Africa? Because according to us and many of us, I would believe, saffron is a seasoning. It's a spice, and as Savyasachi explained, it's an Asian cuisine and influence. So, how did you decide that you're going to bring that and farm saffron in South Africa?
Well, because I'm farming in the Karoo, it's a very fertile piece of land, the Karoo, and I farm with fruit, plant apricots and plums, and I farm with onion seed and carrot seed and everything, vegetables. And the problem in the Karoo was the growing season is very short and the winter is very long. So we get late frost until end of mid October till mid of November. We still get heavy frost, and all the things that I produce in the on the farms and especially in the Karoo, it's always frost damage, hail damage. So the risk is just enormous. I mean, I lost my farm because of that, not because I was a bad farmer. It's just the risk was just too high. I didn't harvest once. I harvest once in 6 years, and you can't. No business can perform like that. So short and long, I lost everything. Start up again. But well, when I was still busy at that farm, I was looking into other products, future, because I'm a pioneer. I like to do things and try to set up things for the future. That's the way I am. And I start with vegetables, I cauliflower and broccoli and spinach. So I start that, make that my core of my business, because eventually I find out which cultivars works and everything that grows well. So I tick that boxes. And then when I was still at the other farm, just before the auction, I look into the saffron, not by accident. I walk into somebody one day, Anton van Sale. He do feasibility studies for banks and all businesses. If you want to plan something, then he comes out. The bank will send him out, and he will always charge for that. And he will say, okay, that you want to farm with, say, with lemons, or you want to farm with grapes or whatever. It doesn't matter what commodity. So I've asked him one day. I said, yes, Anton, I'm going through this bad patch in my life at the moment. What in the Karoo? What do you think? He said, man, I've done a feasibility study on saffron, and that thing clicks the boxes for me. But there's not enough information about saffron in South Africa. There's only one guy, Benny Engelbrecht. So I get his number. I get Benny Engelbrecht's number from Anton. And then I phoned Benny and I asked him one day, come and see you and stuff. But at that stage of my life, everything was not done yet, dusted. So I didn't know if I'm going to lose the farm or whatever. But short and long, eventually I come out with Benny. I went out. Benny was at Williston. So I drive out to Benny, and yeah, and then I speak to Benny, start speaking to him. And then I said, yes, Benny, I really wanna plant this thing, because all the boxes, risk wise, climate wise, cold weather, because we never get colder than -8, 9, and hail. If if we get hail in November, or say December up till February, I want something that's dormant or that's off the land, so it can't get damaged. And yeah, and I speak to Benny, and then I bought the first saffron from Benny at Williston.
Wow, that's a very interesting story, and we really share your sentiment when you speak about losses in farming, because as farmers, that is something that we are all too familiar with. And if I can maybe speak to Benny, Benny, are you with us?
Gugu Benny is online. Benny, you just have to accept the invitation that will allow you to speak.
I think the technology might be something of an issue tonight, but maybe we can move on in the meantime, Google.
All right, no problem. Mr. Benny will speak once he is sorted with that. Mr. Ericson, I really just want to come back to you, because now you spoke about something very interesting. You spoke about the climate that you're in, and saffron was the answer. So can we farm saffron anywhere, or does it specifically have to be in the western parts of our country?
Um, you know what? Any product that you farm, doesn't matter if it's saffron or whatever. I think it's impossible that saffron will grow everywhere. Because God has made things in a way that some things do better in some places than other places, and you must work with nature. You can't work against nature, because I tried to prove that in the Karoo, and eventually nature win. So to answer you that question, the reason why I decided on the Karoo. Everything, because I was quite involved with seed production for onions and carrots and beetroot and name it up. And the way that bulbs work, if you take saffron or onions or whatever, any bulbs, everything I think northeast from the N1, in my eyes, I think that will be the high yield production areas. But to come back to the bulb, to saffron itself, there's two things that, or one thing that I think is very important when it comes to any bulb. It doesn't matter any flower bulb or anything you talk about. Um, Saffron as well is day length. So that's the amount of length of the day that the bulb can grow basically. So in South Africa, we are short to medium day length. And we're not really a long day country. What I say by that is the amount of time that is light. That's from basically from sunrise to dawn basically. So that period plays a big role in bulbs, especially any bulb. But if you talk about saffron, and the only reason for that is if you can't grow a bulb in an area where the day length is not long enough, the way the people or the world manipulate things, they put things in freezers or cold rooms for a certain time to convert the bulb into that cold units. But I've done it in seed production. That's not really the long term beneficial, or what you call it, the long term vision for that. You need to plant the bulb at the right place. So cold units, that's the amount of temperature, or we call it the Richardson cold units. That's an international standard. So that's the amount of cold units the bulb need to receive to go into flower production. So, for instance, there's certain trees, like fruit trees and anything, they've got a certain amount of hours below 7.2 degrees Celsius. And if your bulb doesn't reach that specific hours in a year, basically, so in a resting period, so what what we call that's going to be after flower, so that's going to be, say, from end of April. So say April, May, June, July, August, September. That's going to be the period where the bulb inherit enough cold, and then it goes into sleep, say October month, November, and then it will go and sleep till end of February, beginning of March, middle of March. So that's the period that the bulb decided if it goes into the next season, the growing season, is it going to go flower? Is it going to produce a flower, or is it going to grow just normal growth, like leaf growth? And the areas where the bulb will not get enough cold units, nothing will happen to the bulb. The bulb will maybe every second bulb will flower, or maybe the bulb will only make one flower. So I think the short and the long that will happen. That's why I decided in the Karoo, because my heart is in the Karoo, and there's a lot of poverty in the Karoo when it comes to work. And that's why I was so interested in the saffron, because my heart is Karoo. So in the Karoo is only sheep farming, and the sheep farming industry with all the drought and things is, I can't see that sheep farming, like the farms in the Karoo at the moment, I think only 50% of all the farms will eventually go on with farming with sheep, because they sold all the flocks and stuff. So how are people going to recover? So the poverty is just in the Karoo areas is just getting massive and massive. So that's why my heart is in the Karoo. But I didn't say it will not grow in Limpopo or will not grow in Pretoria. I think what will happen, like in the seed industry, when we done the carrots and the onions and stuff, you're gonna have certain areas where you're gonna plant the bulbs for bulb production, so you can make the bulbs more. And then you're going to have your areas with your high yield potential areas where you're going to have a lot of flowers. You're going to have your kilograms per hectare. You're going to have high yields. Then you will have your medium yield areas, and then you will have your low yield areas. So to put it in perspective, you will have people in certain areas where you will get, say, 500 kilograms a hectare. Then you will get some places where you get 2 kilograms per hectare or 1 kilogram. To get the maximum out of the bulb of saffron, you need to plant it at the right place at the right time. And if you take the whole industry, Iran, where they grow saffron, there's normally the cold areas, the cold, dry winter areas that saffron performs better. So if you look at the summer rainfall areas, I think it will work in the summer fall rain areas, but I think the bulbs will eventually be taken out before the season start with the rain. So for instance, October month, end of October, November, the bulbs should be taken out and
Yeah.
then put in storage until the new season start.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for that. And I think it speaks more on the new industry of saffron. It's not something that farmers are doing commercially on a larger scale. There's not a lot of people in the industry. So this is an opportunity for, I think, a lot of us to try ourselves out in the areas that we're in and see how well we can do with saffron. Mr. Benny, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm standing outside. Sorry for the struggling to connect,
No, it's totally understandable. Thank you so much for joining.
but it seems it seems that I have signal now. So I apologize.
We're losing you there, but Mr. Benny. All right, guys. Mr. Benny is having network difficulties. So I think once he's done, he'll do his introduction. But we are going to move on with the show. Savia Fasidas, we would really like to know what saffron looks like because we're not even exposed to saffron. I mean, I googled the images, I saw a beautiful purple flower. So please just enlighten us about what saffron looks like and your spiritual significance of saffron. Why is saffron so important?
Yes, you're right. I think Google showed. Yeah, it's a beautiful purple flower with these saffron strands. Actually, saffron is a color. If you take red and orange and put together and yellow, it comes off sort of a type of orange. And just before I get into that, I just wanted to uh, jump off a point that was mentioned by Mr. Eric about being in the Karoo and looking at the poverty situation there. In Spain, actually, they grow saffron very widely, but because it requires a lot of labor to 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 harvest it, to grow it, to maintain it, and not turning the profit, they've actually are moving. The farmers are moving from there to countries where they could get cheaper labor, so that the people who are willing to work, because in those countries the youth are no longer as much interested in working in the farms. So anyway, yes, saffron is a color if you mix red and yellow, and it is revered, because it's a very rare spice. And I think also if you do your research, you find that it's the most expensive spice that you get. So the plant, in the spiritual traditions, is associated with the service of the higher beings, of the higher planets, and even particularly with the service of the supreme person. If you can think of royalty, and they tend to want the finest things in life, And so the finest spices, the finest fragrances, cloths, the finest minerals. And so saffron is then listed amongst the types of uh, spices that are served with the dishes that are served in the higher realms. And in that way, it's very respected. Also, saffron is the color of the cloth worn by monks because that color is like the color of the sun, and the sun is about enlightenment. So, students of enlightenment wear that color. And also, the impact of seeing that color uh, imbues people with a feeling of satisfaction, of being energized. So it's also linked with color therapy, and that it is a color which warms the heart, which inspires. And so, yes, if you ever see monks, practically from most traditions in the East, then they wear these orangish robes, these saffron robes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Savyasati, for that. And I think that was interesting to learn about the importance of saffron, you know, in different countries and different philosophies and spirituality. So thank you for that, Savyasati. Back to you, Mr. Eric Brown. So now we're speaking about growing the saffron. Um, before we get into understanding how it is grown, please maybe shed some light on something very interesting that caught our eyes. That saffron is a high commodity. I think Business Insider said that per yield, you can export it for like 200,000 rand per kilogram. So let's speak on the scalability of producing saffron. How feasible and profitable is it?
Um, yeah, I think it's definitely a high value product, and I think the key to South Africa is we we need to put value to exporting, because if you export, you can buy saffron in South Africa as well, but you buy anything from 30 rand to 100 rand a gram. So if you take it in kilograms, 100,000, that's max you will get out. So I think it's definitely a high value product, and that's the nice thing of it. It's a high value product. Infrastructure wise, to harvest or to make it dry or things is basically nothing. You Everything you have in your house, as long as you've got this piece of land of a piece of back garden big enough, you can grow. And I think the nice thing about the saffron that attracts me a lot is, for instance, if everyone these days, you've got these communities. I know when I was in South Africa, in England, sorry, you've got this community. There's 1,000 houses, 2,000 houses, and then they have this piece of land that belongs to the municipality. Then you can use that piece of land to grow vegetables, to do whatever you want to do. You don't have to pay as long as you just maintain it. And I think that's where saffron, in my eyes, will make a difference. Because if you got a housewife that's got 2 or 3 kids, there's no husband, or what is the situation? If you can do saffron, and you can only do 20 grams or 30 grams and sell it at 300 to 400 rand a gram, it can make a big difference year in and year out. And the nice thing of it, I think, it multiplied, because it multiplied in the soil every year by 3. So if you, after 3 or 4 years, you take the bulbs out, you can resell it to maybe to your neighbor. Eventually, everyone in the community can lock in, and you can export this nice, lovely. It's a flower. It's a nice thing. I mean, you never pick a flower when you're down. You always smile when you pick a
Mm.
flower, and I think that's the nice thing of this. I, to be quite honest, think this thing, you don't have. to have a big piece of land to make it your own. You can have a small piece of land and you can make something out of this where other communities can't do it. And I think that's the big attraction of saffron. And I think that's going to change a lot of things in South Africa, and I think it will bring people together as well, because it's a thing that the community can do, kids can do, everyone can buy into this, and it can eventually, I think, if we do it right and we do it with the right heart and the right, and we see the long term goal of this, I think it can be a big game change in South Africa, to be quite honest.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eric Brown. Yeah, you're teaching us a lot when it comes to saffron, because we are slowly understanding high value when it comes to growing crops. Most of farmers are very fixated on vegetables or fruits, but understanding high value crops, I think, is very important, and how we can change a community just by plants alone. So I just wanted to remind
Yeah.
everyone, thank you so much for joining us, guys, tonight on our saffron farming. The floor is open. So if you want to ask a question or maybe comment on something, please do so. Just request to be a speaker. Mr. Brown, whilst you're here, which cultivar, or rather variety, are we growing in South Africa?
It's just the one variety. There's not two or three or five. There's only the one. Um, you get, if you look at the bulb, if you take the size of it, you get small, medium, large bulbs. Your small bulbs is normally the ones that next year, if you replant it, it will grow again, but it will probably not make a flower. Your medium bulb will maybe make one flower or two flowers, and then you get your large bulbs. Your large bulb, if the conditions was right, then you should get between 2 to 5 flowers per plant every year. And that bulb will divide it every year into three, and then next year come, the three will eventually get six. Then the year after, the six will get 12. And I think if you plant it at the place where the conditions is right, for instance, say for in your back garden, you can plant it in a pot, you can plant it in a big bucket. As long as the soil is nice, drain, and perfect conditions, it's not wet clay and stay wet all the time, you will leave the bulbs in for 4 to 5 years in the soil, and then you must take it out, because I think the competitions between the bulbs will just be too much. So you will eventually take it out and replant it the next season.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Eric Brown. So there's only one cultivar. Tamsin, do you have a question or comment that you'd like to add in?
Good evening, Gugu. Yes. I actually wanted to know what the market is like to break in to being a saffron farmer. For instance, we have a lot of crop farmers in Gauteng, which is a very hard market to break into. I just wanted to know what is it like for saffron.
Thank you, Tamsin. Mr. Eric Brown, do you want to take it?
Yes, I will. No, I don't think the market when it comes to saffron globally, as we speak, I mean, we only, if we plant 1,000 hectares or 2,000 hectares or 3,000 hectares, that will not even be 10% of the demand there is at the moment, because the quality, I think where people make the mistake, the quality of the saffron produced in South Africa, and you can probably speak to Benny Engelbrecht, he will probably help you on that side. The test has been sent away and the results just came back, and the quality of the saffron is from the best in the world. And you can farm, that's why I said you can farm saffron in places, call it anywhere, Spain, wherever, you can farm it. Yes, you can probably farm saffron by manipulating certain things, you will probably do it in a lot of places, but certain areas the quality will just be better than other places. And demand wise for saffron, as we speak, if we just take the Middle East, South Africa, for the Middle East, if you take all the production to 2 or 3 thousand hectares, um, and you just go into the Middle East is very particular in what the saffron quality need to be. In South Africa, quality is absolutely from the best, or one of the best. I think under the top three. So I think in that case, I think demand wise, overproduction wise, I don't think for at least the next 30, 40 years we will have problems on that, because 1 gram, if you to put everything in perspective, you need to harvest 150,000 flowers to get 1 kilogram. So to give you an idea, and 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So just to put everything in perspective for you. So I don't think there will be, at least for the next 30, 40 years, a problem with saffron, because saffron farming overall in the industry is going down because of the climate change that happen in the other places in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Eric Brown. Tamzan, I hope that answers your question. We have another comment or question from Colin. Colin, would you like to add in?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to ask, in terms of the production, which areas in the country have yielded have shown the best yield in terms of provinces? And then my second question was around the processing. What kind of processing would you be looking at, and what products would you be making?
Thank you so much, Colin. I don't know if you got that, Mr. Brown, but he wanted to know which province is currently doing very well with. Sorry, Colin, could you just maybe mute your mic? Thank you. Which province is doing very well when it comes to saffron production? And his second question was the processing. So after harvesting, maybe you can also speak on to
Okay.
the handling of the harvesting and the processing of it.
Yeah, I think if we talk about the reason at the moment, because the saffron was being planted in the Karoo, so all the stats coming from the Karoo at the moment, because I harvest saffron, and that's always also in the Karoo. So at the moment, the Karoo is ticking the boxes, but in the same breath, I also say a lot of starter packs has been sent to different reasons, and a lot of people has planted on certain places, and that was the idea of the starter pack, because I think it's a good idea. If you want to do saffron, get the starter pack, plant the starter pack, and I think don't take your view on the first year, because a bulb, if you plant it in a certain place, in a certain area, it will take at least 2 to 3 seasons before it gets to its normal routine. So I think at the moment, I think the starter packs cost, I think it's 15,000 rand for 500 to 700 bulbs, and then it comes with your everything, your fertilizer and everything you need. And I think that's actually the best way of testing, because you've get microclimates in climates. So if you in the Karoo, some places in the Karoo will do better than other places. The same in Pretoria, Joburg, the summer rainfall. So I think you will have different yields, different conditions applied to different places. So I think the best way of making sure these things work, I think just get involved as soon as possible. Get you a starter pack. I think we can probably speak to Benny and maybe make the starter packs a bit smaller as well, maybe for people who want to test it in towns and townships and everything. And I think that's the best way of testing, because then everyone will know what will eventually happen, because there's a lot of things that can have an influence on the quality. Because the quality, if you get a lot of rain when the flower flowers, then the saffron quality will be not as good as an area where you didn't get rain, because otherwise you will have influence on the class. So you will have probably a lower grade of saffron. And then after harvest, I think that's the nice thing of saffron, to be quite honest with you. Um, Infrastructure wise, because if you pick the flower, the flower comes out every morning about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, when the climate is just nice. You're gonna harvest your flowers. You go and pick your flowers. You put the flowers in a bucket. Make sure it's not closed so it can't sweat. Then you take your flowers to a nice place on a big nice table, and then you take the leaves off, the purple bit. You open it up. Then you take the stigmas out, the red stigmas, and then you've got, if you got a stigma in your hand, then you've got obviously the top is the red, the dark red, and as you go closer to the base, it will get more yellow to little white color. So then we broke the first third of the flower. We broke in two, so the one bit we put in one side, and then a lighter color we put to one side, because the dark red is your high quality ones, or your like I said, your better taste one, your high spec one, and the other one is your lower one. That's the one that I think people use more for a little bit of cooking. So that's the two classes, and then you basically put the saffron, the stigmas, you put it between the kitchen towel, the normal kitchen towels that we all use in our kitchens. You put it on the bottom, then you put your saffron on top of the first layer, and then you put another layer on top of the kitchen towel, and then you put it. I put mine in the convection oven for about 3 to 4 minutes, but you can put it in a microwave as well, between 1 and 1.5, 2 minutes. We're busy with the test now to see what's the difference in quality gonna be to the one in a microwave and the one in a convection oven. I personally like the convection oven more, because I don't like the microwaves. I don't think health wise microwave is always a difficult topic to talk. So then we will see this year which quality wise was better, the oven one or the microwave. But infrastructure wise, that is what you need for. So you need a piece of land, you need a bulbs, you need water, not a lot of water. Saffron use about 150 millimeters of rain per year. To put it in perspective for you, this is about a third, no, it's a quarter of what any fruit tree or vegetables need a year to grow vegetable, or to grow one apple, to grow one pear. And that's the nice thing about Saffricon, I think, because water is quite expensive these days, so it get more expensive and stuff. So you will, water wise, product wise, that's why the high income of saffron is so attractive, because you use a less input, but your output is quite a lot.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Eric Brown. And Colin, I'm pretty sure that answers your question. Now, just to move along, you spoke about the quality, the different quality you get from the stigmas. So you get the one side that's used for maybe cooking, and then the other one, the high quality one that's also used. So I'm going to move on to Savyasachi Das. Maybe speak on your personal experiences with saffron in relation to cuisine, because we know that in terms of the color, you are currently also wearing the saffron color in your display picture. So maybe just tell us more about your personal experiences with that.
Yes, actually, in areas where this cloth for the monks is prepared, and I guess it's also a very high quality of dye is made, fabric dye, that is made from saffron. And it's very expensive, of course, because the the plant is quite rare. Not so many people are farming, and to buy it is expensive. But in food, it is used to make, milkshakes. It can be a flavoring. They make saffron flavored cakes. It's Once saffron is used, then immediately the pricing of any food product goes up because, as I mentioned earlier, that it is a sort of a royal type of spice. It's mentioned that even after Buddha had left his body, when he died, his priests they made a sheet of cloth from the saffron dye, and then that's when that color became an official color for their robes. I remember once in the Song of Solomon hearing about it being mentioned as one of the names of the most sweet smelling herbs. So it's very amazing that just a small amount of it. In fact, one has to be expert because you put a little too much, it can spoil the dish. But just, a smidget of saffron also transforms the cuisine. And so, different places where the hosts were trying to impress the monks, they'll bring out such preparations and they'll tell you that this has some saffron in it. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed in the preps that this spice is involved.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Savyasachi, for that one. Um, we just also want to extend Mr. Engelbrecht's apologies because he's really going through some network problems and he really, really wanted to be here. But he said, should anything change, he will definitely climb onto the space. Zemo, too, do you have any comments or questions that you'd like to ask? Zemo, are you there?
Gugu, maybe while Mr. Zimmo is going, Gugu, it's Ivor here. I find it so fascinating and loving the discussion how the world's most expensive spice can literally be used also on a small scale and to make communities thrive. As a maybe one day farmer interested in saffron, what are some of the most common problems experienced with saffron? Tips maybe about diseases or pests that future farmers, saffron farmers, need to be aware of, Google.
Beautiful question. Thank you, Ivor. Mr. Eric Brown, would you like to take this one?
Yes. To answer that question, to be quite honest with you, there's not a lot, eh? There's a few bugs and stuff that will probably eat the leaves maybe. But to be quite honest with you, spraying at the moment is zilk, is nothing. And that's the nice thing of it. And fertilizer, we we do I do the test now to do to conventional to like normal compost and normal fertilizer that you buy in shops and whatever. To be quite honest with you, this thing doesn't need a lot of fertilizer either. Compost, fertile soil, is basically the key to it. And I think the best that I can think that make the most problems maybe is birds. Not big birds, but like pheasants and that sort of things. They like the bulbs, so they scratch out the bulbs and eat it. But pest wise, like pests that you have on fruit and vegetables and stuff, nothing like that, eh? Nothing. Because don't forget, saffron in South Africa is growing in the winter. So it's basically in the Western Cape is going to be winter rainfall like now. It's growing as we speak. So in the winter, the pest is low because it's too cold. And up north as well, Pretoria, that place is obviously not your raining season at the moment, but it's also cold. So when it comes to pest and that thing is basically, to be quite honest with you, is nothing. It's just the water like I said to you, you don't have to make it wet. You just keep it moist. And normally, what I do, I pick up the piece of soil in my hand, squeeze my hand together, and if you open your hand and the soil opens up, then you know you need to give water. If the soil stay in that bulb form, then don't give water. And that's basically what it is. And I think that's the nice thing for a one-day farmer. And I think that's what basically will happen. People, I think what people must do, if you want to do saffron, go in partnership with somebody that have a piece of land and say, listen, I want to buy into this thing. I give the bulbs, you give your land, and we make a joint venture. And I think that's the nice thing about, because when it comes to spraying and the high tech things, when it comes to that, is it's really it's very low compared to other things at the moment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. I trust you are well answered there. And Mr. Brown, whilst we are on the production of saffron, please tell us what kind of irrigation do we use when we use irrigation? Are we looking at drip irrigation, sprinklers?
To answer that question, anything that grows underneath the ground, like onions, there's saffron, beetroot, you can spray over top. You can get water, give water over the top, and things like that. But you know what? The technology these days with drip irrigation is there, and I've done the test in my life. So why do you want to pay it again? The best thing for saffron is drip irrigation. Or maybe if you have water, you can do flood irrigation. You give 25 mils of water before when the bulb comes out of dormancy. You can make it nice and wet, and then you leave it. Then let the plant grow, let the flowers comes out, and when the first flowers is gone, then you can give another water. But because you farm with a flower, and for instance, the first from your plant, the first 50 days after planting, between 40 and 60 days, depends on the area, your first flower comes out. And if you put water on that flower, you're gonna have an influence on your quality of your saffron. So drip, do drip irrigation. That's the answer, because you've got no wastage of water. It's more eco-friendly. It's just you're gonna have less weeds, because weeds is gonna be a problem as well. Because at the moment we're testing for what can we spray with the saffron for the weeds, because the weeds is quite severe, because they grow in the same time as well. So I will say drip irrigation or flood irrigation, and that's that. Overhead, you can get away with it, but then you need to make sure your water quality is right. There's no salts in, there's no iron in the water or magnesium in the water, because you're gonna have influence on your plant first for the growth, and you're gonna have quality issues with your saffron when you harvest.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Just wanted to remind everyone on the session is that the floor is currently open. So if you have a comment or you have a question that we might not have touched on, now's your chance to ask our wonderful speakers anything that you'd like to ask, or maybe just to comment on it. Would also be advisable.
And on that note, Guru, we've got Mila Fresh Produce on the line.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, guys, I joined a little bit late. I've got one question. Um, how is the market of saffron in South Africa? Can give me like a little bit of insight. Let's say if I'm someone who wants to start saffron. So, how is the market? What are the few things that you would suggest?
Miller
Or
Fresh,
either
we
even
are currently
advise?
struggling
Um,
to hear you. Could you please speak up?
can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I've got a few questions here that I would like to ask with regards to saffron. How is the market in South Africa when it comes to saffron? That's question number one. And question number two is what are the few things that you would advise to a farmer that wants to start saffron farming in South Africa? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miller Fresh. I think I got what you were trying to say. His first question was the market. I think understanding the market here in South Africa and also globally, who are our markets basically. And the second question, I think you touched on, Mr. Eric Brown, but he wanted to know just the tips of starting as a small scale farmer.
Yes. Um, Market wise in South Africa, I think is very small at the moment. I think the problem in South Africa is we know about saffron, but we didn't learn to cook with saffron because we think it's too expensive for us. But you can buy saffron in shops. You can buy it, but I think there's quality problems as well, né? Because I think what happened in South Africa, the lower quality comes here. I think that's it's just a statement I think I make, because I've bought some and I taste some and it's different. So market wise in South Africa, I think is very small, but I think there's a big market because if you start cooking with saffron and you start doing things, I mean, there's a lot of people that want to do. There's an email coming through yesterday, last week. They want to do gin. They want to use saffron in gin. They want to use saffron. What can we do with the flower bit, the purple bit? Can we use it in cheese? So the people start looking into that, and I think what, how more people is going to start using it. Eventually, there will be a gap in South Africa because it makes a big difference when it comes to cooking with the right saffron. And I think that's just the idea people need to get used to. But market wise, I think there will be in 5 6 years time from now there will be a big gap for saffron. Then the other question, how do you start first time? Well, just do it. Just I think just get Benny Engelberg's number, and I think lady next year. I think this year is too late. The season is already too late to start this year. So the best time for the season coming, I think get your because the bulbs will grow till end of October, middle of November. So say December, the bulbs will be taken out of the soil and then will be classed for small, medium, and large. And that is the right time then to put your application in. Say, listen, I'm interested in a starter pack. And maybe I think we must speak to Benny and see if they can maybe make the starter pack smaller for people in cities. And I think what you must do then, do your own test. There will be a starter pack, and in a starter pack, there will be details to say that's what you need to do. That's how deep you need to plant it. That's when you need to plant it. That's when the right time is to plant, and that's how you give them water. And with the technologies these days that's available, people can get together with. We all have phones, we all have internet, so you can basically, I think, you can basically just do it and just buy the starter pack, buy the bulbs, and do your own test. And if you see all the tests, the flowers is there, the stigmas is nice and long, the color is right, the flower is beautiful, then after the 2 years and you're still happy and you've seen, okay, listen, I get 1 or 2 or 3 flowers per plant, then you can buy extra bulbs and just increase your things. But my honest opinion, I think the people must just do their own test, small scale, wherever they are, and see if it works. Because, like I said, some places it will work and some places it will not work. And I think how quicker we all connect to this, how quicker we can make this thing stand for the best of all of us, not for certain people, for everyone. And I think that is the nice thing about saffron.
Thank you so much, Eric Brown, for the wonderful tip. I listened and I heard, and I think it speaks more on the nature of saffron farming here in South Africa is that we need the data. So if you are interested in saffron, just do it, just start, and hopefully you could also be encouraging us and giving us the results and showing us that this is something that is profitable. This is something that anyone can start and it's very viable. So thank you, Mr. Brown. I will open up the floor for the last time So if there are any questions or if there are any comments, please, now's your chance. Request to be a speaker and fire away. Yes, Iva, is there something you would like to add?
No, while the questions are coming in, there was a DM, so maybe I'll ask it if the person's not asking it to Savyasaki Das, saying it's fascinating. What makes saffron the world's most expensive spice? Is it because it's a high maintenance plant, and also clearly the money is in spice farming, but does saffron also have other uses? For example, in natural remedies. Yeah. Thanks, Google.
Thank you, Iva. And maybe Savyasachi, you can take this one. Tell us more about saffron when it comes to maybe natural remedies and the cuisine part and any other part that we might not be exposed to or aware of.
Yes. Um, yes, it is used also for as a relaxant. People would put it, to steam up. It's like it's good for uh, muscular relaxation. There's also, another side which some may find interesting, some may not, that it is put together with other spices and it can be an aphrodisiac. And in terms of its use in Asia, they, grow it especially in India. And there, they produce medicines in terms of Ayurvedic sciences. And there they take it to be like a miracle flower because there's so much link to it that it's spoken of in their ancient texts. And so it is used in creating certain potions to help people to uh, come out of anxiety, stress. It helps them to be relaxed. They even use it in some forms of incense. Of course, the pricing goes up because it's very rare and because it's revered.
Wow, that is very interesting, Savyasachi. Thanks for sharing that one. It's something that we can use for stress and anxiety, and I feel like every
Mm.
farmer should be planting saffron just for that reason. Ivor, what was the second question, or was it the first question that they asked? They asked about the remedy
Yeah, yeah, no, no. He answered both perfectly.
perfectly.
It's just people, and somebody was just trying to understand what makes it the world's most expensive.
Oh,
What
okay.
makes it so expensive? What gives it its value. Thank you, Google.
Yeah, I think part of it is the yield, as Mr. Brown was discussing earlier. That it's like out of so many flowers, you can get, for example, up to 75,000 flowers, and you get half a kilogram out of it. So then it makes it very valuable because it's not so available.
Wow. I've certainly learned so much about saffron farming, and I think it's something that we really need to look into as farmers. And I'm quite excited. I'm very excited, and I feel like the more of us take onto this, the more discussions we can have around saffron farming as well. I see Tebuho is here. Hi, Tebuho.
Hi Google. Hi everyone. Everybody was wondering about where they could get the bulbs in order for them to test whatever condition they're staying in to see if the saffron will grow there. I've been speaking to Benny Engelbrecht for like the past couple of months, and he alerted me to a store. It's called Diplas Winkel. They have a small starter pack that sells for about 400 bucks or 500 bucks, if I'm not mistaken, and that's about 10 bulbs, and it comes with a few instructions on what to do with the bulbs once you get them. So then, I think you guys should check it out. It's diplaswinkel.co.za. I think the store's in Pretoria somewhere. I think in Waterkloof, I think.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Tebogo.
so much, Tebogo.
What did you say?
What did you say?
Diplaster
Die
Winkel.
Winkel.
Yes, die Plaas Winkel.
Diplaster Winkel.
Die
Thank you so much. We'll
Winkel.
check
Thank you
that
so
out.
much. We'll check that out.
So, on behalf of Mr.
So on
Engelbrecht,
behalf
we
of Mr.
really wanted
Engelbrecht, we
to
really want to
apologize for his network. He really tried to come on the show and direct us and tell us what to do. And he was going to explain more on the starter pack. But fear not, we can. I'll share his details. So anyone who feels like they really want to get in touch with him, because Saffron is the next red gold, please stay tuned. We will post the details. And Food from Zanzi also has an article out that's written about both Mr. Eric Brown and Mr. Benny. So, are there any other questions and comments before we close our session? Ivor?
Yes, Mila Fresh Produce or Mila has got the last question.
One more question. I would like to ask if is there anyone on the call right now uh, who has done saffron? So I would like to to engage with that particular person after this call and see if because honestly I would really like to start and see if I
Hi,
can
Miller Fresh. Sorry, I think maybe your mic is low. Could you just repeat that again?
I would like to ask if is there anyone on the call right now who once tried the saffron or who's got a little bit, that can guide us, because it's something that we would like to start, as for next year, as we've advised that right now it's not the right time to start saffron. So is there anyone that I can, get in contact with and you know and engage with after the call or anything like that?
Okay, Myla Fresh. I think you were asking if there's anyone that you can contact, or if there's anyone that you can speak to with regards to saffron farming. We will definitely share the
And
details.
also, Gugu, specifically, maybe his question I heard a bit. If there's anyone on this call right now that has experimented with saffron farming on a
Small
small
scale
scale
for sort of
for sort of
practical
practical
tips.
tips.
Well, to be honest, guys, I bought my bulbs just towards the end of May, and I have them in the ground right now. And I don't know the technical term as yet, but they're showing that those green little petals that pop out of the ground just before the flower comes out of them. So I would think my bulbs have been in the ground maybe for about 8 weeks now, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and I've got about 10 bulbs in the ground. So I'm busy with experimenting with them now, and I'm based in Gauteng in the East Strand.
Perfect, Deboho. Thank you
Perfect,
so much
Deboho. Thank you so much
for that go
for
getter
that go
attitude. We'll
getter
definitely keep in
attitude. We'll
touch.
definitely keep in touch.
And maybe you can also share your experience with us on Twitter, and maybe people can just get in contact who are in Gauteng with Deboho, and see how his journey is and see what you can extract and learn from him as well. So, are there any more other questions? I think that is all the questions that we have for tonight. So I just want to extend a huge thank you to our speakers. Mr. Eric Brown, thank you so much for teaching us and exposing us to this profitable field of farming. Saffron is booming, guys. Get on the train, and you could really make a difference within your operation, and most importantly your community as well, which is fantastic. And Savia Sachidas, thank you so much for enlightening us about the importance of saffron in different parts of the world, and how we can also use it as a cuisine, and also how we can use it as something to really take note of as something special that we can farm with. So Mr. Engel, okay, he's not here, but he also wanted to just thank our speakers for doing such a great job. He had network problems, but he says that anyone who needs to get in contact with him can contact him. After the session, we'll leave everyone's details and you guys can follow them. And thank you so much for Food from Zanzi for allowing us to host farm sessions.
Thank you, Gugu. I think Dawn's having connection problems.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I didn't hear the last part. Was Gugu chatting to me? Sorry, guys. I'm also
Yeah,
like in and
yeah.
out of this. I'm in and out of the session also. But Gugu, thanks for being an awesome host once again. I have learned a lot about saffron farming. And then please don't forget that we do have an article that basically outlines the process, all the steps that you need to take to be able to get started. And so if you do want to go and find out more information, you can also just go to Food from Zanzi and look for saffron farming as well. And then the expert are on this call, Tebogo. I'd love to also hear from you as a startup farmer, and we can always connect. It's always great to connect with startup farmers in these different industries. So
Great to
great
speak
to
to
speak
everyone,
to
and
everyone,
thanks,
and
Mr.
thanks, Mr.
Brown.
Brown.
Pleasure, guys. Pleasure.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about that. I think I had network difficulties for a while, but thank you, Dawn, so much for that. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you so much, Sabyasachi. And we will share the details after our session. Thank you, Iva.